Chapter 27. First job. Moved to the US, finally. 1988. We can't have something to live for unless we're willing to die for it. Che Guevara. Heartbeat pounding, sweaty palms, cleaning my shoes and straightening out my suit and tie. I waited for my job interview. I needed this job. I was barely 22 years old and couldn't believe I was standing on American ground. It had been 4 years, 4 long years of waiting, trying to come over the border. I'd played by the rules. I tried to get political asylum, but when denied, I did what I had to do. Now there was no turning back. I had to go all the way. Just like my mom used to say, come hell or high water, we will do this. Just 2 days ago, I'd gone deep into the southeast Los Angeles black market to get a California driver's license and a green card, just in case my cover was blown and I had to continue my journey further into Canada, or Europe if necessary. Will this old man notice that my papers are fake? Will he call the cops? My thoughts were going 100 miles an hour when, "You have an impressive resume, young man," said the manager. "I wish we could offer you something better, but all we have is an entry-level position." Minimum wage in California in 1988 must have been $4.25 an hour. $4.25? What? I will happily work for $2 an hour, I thought. I was willing to work overtime, double time, whatever. Elio, my son, was a newborn, and I needed to get a job. So when the manager said that all he could pay me was $6 an hour, I jumped up and down. I couldn't contain my happiness. Even when the manager said that I'd be working the graveyard shift cleaning toilets, I was still jumping up and down. Shit, for $6 an hour I'll clean toilets with my bare hands. Nay, for $6 an hour I'll clean the turd so clean they'll be shining. After trying to cross the border so many times and being beaten by officers on both sides of the border, this was a nice break. I'd been chased and terrorized by the Migra German Shepherd dogs. I'd almost drowned swimming across the Tijuana River. I'd almost been run down by the Interstate 5 car stampede. But all that was behind me. The years I spent in hiding, planning, kind of Monte Cristo style. How to come and stay in the US? Persistence had paid off. Somebody had just offered me a job. I'll take the job, I answered, thinking, is this how Pancho Villa and the Spanish conquistadors won battles? Planning, strategically waiting, and suddenly, boom, attack and conquer. Freeze the story. This felt like a conquest, like a redeeming conquest. My thoughts went back to my 8th grade history teacher. "So class, Mexico had not one but 2 wars of independence," said the teacher. "How does that work?" asked Alex, puzzled. "Don't countries have just one war of independence?" "Not necessarily, Alex. Not necessarily. Mexico, for example, had its first war of independence from Spain in 1810, and the second one from France in 1867. said the historian matter-of-factly. "What about the Mexican-American War? Wasn't that the 3rd war of independence?" asked Chucho. "No, Chucho. The Mexican War was not a war of independence. It was more like an invasion, occupation, and takeover. Mexican territory was conquered by the Americans. In fact, our 3rd war of independence will be when Mexico fights the US to get the Southwest back," said the history teacher, glancing around the room, making sure people were listening, and probably thinking, who knows, maybe one of these kids will be the next Che Guevara. "What do you mean? How can we fight against the US?" asked Alex. "Well, this 3rd revolution of independence for Mexico will not be fought by armies. It'll be fought in the political arena, and we will not stop until the border is taken down, so we can rightfully claim back our land," the passionate teacher finalized his class. I had fled my homeland as a young adult. Apatzingán my corner in heaven. It seemed as if it was yesterday when I'd stepped into the wrong fight, with the wrong people, and at the wrong place. There were some tumultuous times in southern Mexico. Cartels were being formed, corrupt politicians were helping oligopolies, they displaced and replaced a free trade. Good people were trying to do the right thing. Cartels were hiring young people by the truckloads. There were no jobs. Putting food on the table was more important than going to school. Resources were taken away by big corporations, by the elite, or by the quotas required by the cartels. I longed for my childhood days, the days of carefree play, neighbors protecting neighbors, community helping community, and a big family giving a lot of love, a lot of reassurance, and a lot of hope. I grew up in a modest home in a rough neighborhood. My dad had been killed violently 3 months before I was born. Where had it all gone? The peace, the family, the honor, the hope, the safety. I could remember Mr. Cadena saying, "A man is not a man if he doesn't take care of himself, his family, and his country." I always wonder why Mexico had gone through so many political changes, even though Mr. Cadena has always said that political changes were part of human history. If the Mexicans were free and independent from the Spanish crown, how come the French conquered Mexico? Teacher, asked Rodolfo. That was easy, Rodolfo. After the first Mexican independence of 1810, Mexico was in its infancy stages, which made it easy for the U.S. to invade, occupied and steal almost half of our country in 1847. After that, the Mexican people were tired, battered, and rebuilding the country, making it easy for the French to invade and occupy Mexico in 1863, said Mr. Cadena. Nonetheless, this was last century. Today, right now, this was the 20th century, and I was on American ground. Government agencies are like highly paid horse, Cadena said. They are funded by big money, special interests, powerful monopolies, and worldwide conglomerates. Thing is, some of these powerful entities can't or won't show where the money comes from. Yet everybody knows. For instance, cartels know what it takes to take government agencies to bed. They have cozy and steamy relationships with them. The truth is always there. Take President Reagan, for example. His administration was exposed for helping terrorists in what is known as the Iran-Contra scandal. That administration was selling arms to Iranian terrorists, so the U.S. could fund the Nicaraguan Contra takeover, even though the American Congress had utterly opposed it. The irony was, that same year, the Immigration Reform and Control Act passed. This act, in fact, was my passport. Along with the millions of Latin Americans that were granted amnesty, and therefore a green card, the question was, did Americans know they had just opened a Pandora's box, letting illegal immigrants become legal? The amnesty of 1986 was the game changer. Back to my story. Okay, before getting my first job in the US, a few months before, after Moni and I returned from Cancun, we lived in Tijuana. Before moving to the US, those months living in Tijuana were stressful. I couldn't find a job, we were staying with Moni's parents, we did not have money, we did not know how we were going to pay for the birth of Elio, who was about to be born, etc. At any rate, Moni went to Anaheim, California to give birth to our son. She went with Roberto, Monica's best friend. When Elio Jr. was born, Moni returned with him to Tijuana. That's when I talked to Alex and Chucho, my childhood friends who were living in Dana Point, California. "With Alex, please," I said with the phone tied to my ear. "Who's looking for him?" answered Chucho. "Elio." "How are you? I'm Chucho," Chucho shouted with the pleasure of greeting a friend who has not been seen for a long time. "Well, so. I want to go to the US and I wanted to ask you if I could stay in your house until I get a job and pay my own way." "Say no more. Come on over," screamed Chucho happily. So I moved to Dana Point. with the Muro family, Chucho, Alex, Blanca, their mom, and Gabi, their little sister. Moving into the house of one of my best friends was like moving in with my family. In fact, we had shared so many things in our lives, we considered ourselves brothers. Anyway, I packed my backpack, went to the border, and crossed over to the US as an American citizen. I went to San Isidro, the border with Tijuana. Then I went to the train station and got a ticket to San Juan Capistrano, where Alex and Chucho welcomed me with a party. The next day, they told me they were going to make me an American citizen, a real American citizen. They took me to Santa Ana, to a low-life neighborhood, and bought me fake papers. When we got back to Dana Point, they got me a job at the Dana Point Hotel, where I started working at night, cleaning toilets. After 3 months, the Muro family, my family, fixed the garage with a couch, a burner stove, and a TV. That was the first home I brought Moni and Elio Jr., who were waiting in Tijuana until I settled down. A garage was our first house. So I started working the graveyard shift, and a couple months later, my supervisor, a guy from Puerto Rico, got to work drunk, as he did often. The manager fired him and offered me the position as supervisor. A couple of months later, in a barbecue, I saw on television that they were giving amnesty to illegals. Since I was still illegal, I began to talk with other paisas about the opportunity. We have to apply. We have to put in for the amnesty. Who knows? Maybe they'll give us papers and perhaps even the American citizenship, I said hopefully. No way! The only thing they want is to get our information, to locate us, catch us, and send us back to Mexico, said a gardener. I don't think so, I said. I'm going to apply and see what happens. Don't be stupid, Elio, they'll catch you, said the gardener. Well, if they catch me, let them catch me. I'll be back again, I said. So I applied for the amnesty. I never thought that they would accept my application. For me, it was an impossible dream. But they say that it costs nothing to dream. Can you believe it, dear reader? Months later, I received a letter saying that they would accept my application and that they would give me permission to work for 6 months. And if I proved that I was a good worker and did not break the law, they would give me another permit for another year, and so on. Although there were many who applied, there were more of those who did not. And many of them, until this day, have regretted not having tried. Well, as soon as I received my first temporary green card, I went immediately to Human Resources to give them my good papers. The Human Resources manager looked at me and said, "What about the papers you've been working with, Elio?" "Oh, those are fake, but these are real," I said proudly. "I cannot believe this, Elio. You've been working illegally with us all of these months? Do you know I can fire you for this?" said the manager. "Yes," I said with a smile on my face. "And you're not worried about that? Why are you smiling?" said the manager, confused. "Well, if you fire me, it doesn't matter. I'll get another job. If I could get a job with crooked papers before, imagine now that I have good papers. I can work and do anything I want," I said with a certainty Pancho Villa would have said it. The rest of the story is long, and I would need to write another book to tell all the adventures I've lived in the US. Okay, you may be asking yourself, does Elio have legal papers? Well, why yes. Thanks for asking. Under the 1986 US amnesty, I received my green card in 1988, and in 2000 I became an American citizen.
Juan Colorado me llaman, soy señores de Michoacán. Ya están los más salidones al mirarme, muchos se van. Traigo mi cuerpo una silla que es de cuero, plata y marfil. Siento para que quede rendir, que viva mi tierra Michoacán y déme charanda para brindar, que Juan Colorado ya está aquí, montado en su cueco en huracán. Juan de Galagán. Que viva mi tierra Michoacán y deme charanda para brindar, que Juan Colorado ya se va montado en su cuenco el huracán.